What's going on, YouTube? Thanks for tuning into the channel. Welcome to Also Simplified, coming to you with a raw video here. Just finished up doing a lot of work, so just really wanted to post something up. The title of this is Follow Yourself. The truth is inside you. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot for myself over the last week or so. Start of Q2 or early into April. Let's jump into this one. Like, comment, subscribe, dislike if you don't like, leave some negative comments. Any feedback will do. Really appreciate you. Hit me with that Help a Brother Out special, the HBO special, and just hit me with some sort of feedback. But let's jump in here. So, I really want to start this framework off with the idea that I have a fundamental belief. If you've ever been watching my channel, and if this is a consistent theme, that there isn't, especially when you think about like learning, some people look at it like, the teacher comes and there's an empty cup, which is the student. You fill up the empty cup, and that's what happens. And that is learning. I took my information and put it into you. I generally look at it a little bit different. It's more about you have a lid and a blinder on, and I'm going to remove the lid and allow that liquid that was already in here to be drunken. So the teacher more guides the person to something that they already knew within themselves. And this is something that Bruce Lee has a great quote that I think kind of exemplifies this, that all knowledge is ultimately self knowledge. So if you know anything, it's really always through the context of yourself. And I think when you start making decisions and thinking about things through life, generally you're the person that knows the best in terms of what direction you're going to go. Now, the first point, in terms of one of the biggest things that I think is an effect on this, I think this really leads to a lot of people having negative mental health, a lot of people going down particular pathways in their life that might not be beneficial. And most importantly, and I think the worst one, is that people are living like a repetitive, cyclical, and I know in certain areas of my life, certain periods of time in my life, I've experienced that. And I'm really focused on not letting that happen as much as I can and just kind of moving forward. And that first thing is that we live in a world full of distractions, whether it's people, could be friendships, relationships, just strangers or anybody you see, advertisements, people trying to talk to you. I go to New York, homeless people trying to come up and ask for money, things. It could be events. It could be particular things outside of your control. I know there's wars in the Middle East that are happening and things of that sort. And it could also be things like a job, things, organization, a club that you're part of that has their own goals, their own things. There's a book that I read called Reality Transurfing that really kind of exemplifies or codifies this kind of into a particular word called a pendulum. And what a pendulum is just kind of a belief system that is put into the air, put into the universe, if you will, and it basically has a goal of its own. So, at an organization, there is a general thing where I can fire any individual person, but there still is like a culture of being that unites everything together, of a direction of which it will move. So that would be like a pendulum. And a lot of these pendulums, they're going to pull you to serve their particular purpose. And this is where you need to have the ability to not let your emotions get involved. When you look at the word emotion, there's something I just heard Tony Robbins said. I don't know if this is actually true with the etymology of it, but I think it kind of sounds good in terms of being able to remember it. But it's energy, which is the E, in motion. So when that energy is being moved and it hits you and it moves you, you now are emotional. And then this is what causes you to do different things. I think, as I mentioned before, things being attributed to negative mental health, it leads you to go down these spirals that really, if you go back to what the point of this whole video is about, the truth is inside you and following yourself, has nothing to actually do with you. You've been absorbed in somebody else's or something else's, um, basically problems and desires and wants and needs, and it's pulled you and hijacked your energy and emotions and taking you in that way. Now, there's two ways to deal with this. One is grounding, which is just to be more grounded in what you do on a daily basis, grounded in what your focus is. This could be things like journaling and writing down your goals. I think meditation is very good. And I think those two things for me are really the main pieces that I'm going to focus on, is just having clear plans and a clear objective of what you're trying to do, and then taking time for yourself to reset empty the mental bank account of everything that happened and just move forward and remember and reconnect with what your direction is and not being so caught up in what the world wants you to do. Now, the second one I would say is to ride the momentum of the wave, ride the wave of fortune or the pendulum, if you will. Understand what it is, that it isn't something that is necessarily picking you, but for whatever reason, your goal and the pendulum itself, and the wave of fortune or lifeline you jumped on, are moving towards what you would call a goal. So if this is happening, I think you should lean into the quote unquote distraction because it's no longer a distraction. It's actually an accelerator towards the direction you're going, but be aware at the point at which it would no longer be helpful. And then, maybe you'd want to let go of it at this point. I know I used to play like these skating video games like in Tony Hawk, and sometimes you could grab actually the back of a truck. And if I'm going down the road and that truck is going down the road, I can grab the back of the truck and it will drag me to move me faster. Now, if that truck decides that it wants to turn and go down a different road, which is not towards my destination, if I keep holding on, I'm going to be being pulled away from my goal. But for that period of time, it was helpful to use, but you have to know when you need to let go and go back to what grounded you, which was really just the pavement and that skateboard. So just built that analogy out of nowhere. So just or that metaphor, if you will. So just pretty proud of myself on that. That was pretty slick. So that's really the grounding and riding the wave. The next piece is that most of what people believe is important and your thoughts and goals are just like not even yours and people don't realize that. And also if you just like gave it any scrutiny historically is not even accurate. These could be things like the desire to be a millionaire. Now that term came during the um, it wasn't during the Louisiana Purchase. It was before that. It was when the French basically found that land and then they were like basically selling stocks on it, saying we found this great new land, the middle of the US that nobody lives in anymore or ever really. We got all this land, it's so great, invest in this, and then it ended up tanking. But people basically got so rich so fast, they called them millionaires, and that's where the term came from. So even just that term is like comes from a period of history that most people don't know anything about, and it's just an arbitrary amount of money that, being a millionaire when I was younger, back in like the late 90s and early 2000s, was a great significant amount of money. Now it's greatly diminished. So once again, that word is just a word that's been thrown around that we like to use to depict something that really is just coming from somebody else's thoughts. Some other ideas would be things like traditional dating. I don't think a lot of people understand. If you really want to go deeper into this topic, go to the Free Agent Lifestyle channel with CGA. He talks about this, that dating really kind of started from prostitution. Like it's not like dating did not exist 150 years ago. It wasn't really a thing. When I think about how my grandparents got like met and came together, at least on my dad's side, it wasn't like a dating kind of thing. It was like you just kind of got together and they were like 16 and 19 or something like that. They were pretty young when I saw the pictures. On my mom's side, it seems like they were a little older. I don't know the exact story, but once again, I don't think it was like a traditional like dating culture the way people think. Like, I got to take you out to one, two, three dates and go to this place and buy like that. All is something that was made, around like the 50s, 60s, and 70s as like a thing for people to do as the community started to get erased and the state started to have more control, because back in the day you would go to somebody's parents and ask to court them and it would be a very short type of dating period, and a lot of it would be supervised, and if you like the person then eventually you guys move towards getting married. And now that is not at all how it works, even though some people want to say, like, oh, I'm traditional. You need to do the dates like this, but that's actually not traditional because back, if you look at early publications, there was actually a lot of scrutiny of why are these high executives taking these strange women that are not their wives and buying them meals at diners and taking them out. There was times in past history where you would not be able to get a hotel room with a woman as a man if it wasn't your wife. So that all shows that like that's not even traditional, but we look at that as like, oh, traditional dating, as opposed to, hookup culture, if you will. And there's many things like this. I know in high school I dated um a girl. She happened to be of white complexion, and she used to always say this thing that I thought was like really funny. And it was like around when Hairspray and stuff came out, with like Zac Efron, and she'd be like, "Oh, the '50s look like such a great time. Like I like wish I could go back." And I'm like, as a black dude, I have zero desire to go back to any period of time that's not at least 1,000 years ago. Like if we ain't going 1,000 years back, just keep me in the present day. I'm happy with how things are today. And there's plenty of things like this. Life before 1900 was disgusting and gross. Uh, Wanting to travel to different places. This really was not like a desire of pharaohs back in Egypt. They didn't want to go to Europe and see how it was like. So a lot of these concepts that we believe in, I think I kind of went on a multiple minute rant of how delusional we are about our desires and wants. But the reason I'm pointing this out is that you should take some time to really think about what you truly want. Now, obviously, you're going to be influenced by the times in terms of what you desire and what you want. Um, However, be sure that it actually is congruent with yourself, because everybody has their own individual desires and things they want to fulfill. And just make sure that you're moving in that kind of direction. And then once again, the distractions are going to pull you towards the zeitgeist of what you're supposed to want, what it's supposed to be for this time period. But there are things that are just, you're a human, and it might not necessarily align with particularly what's hot in this time period, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it'll cause you a lot of dismay and cognitive dissonance if you're consistently moving towards something that is not aligned at all with what the truth inside you is. And then the last part on this first point, and this video might be a little bit long. I thought it was going to be raw, quick off the cuff, but it is kind of quick off the cuff. It's just going to be a little longer. um, that choosing your own thoughts is the hardest thing to do. Having the courage of your own convictions, having the ability to decide that this is what I believe, and then this is the hill I'm going to die on. This is what I'm going to protect, and this is what I'm going to go towards. And I think most people don't want to do that, because that is where you're going to be held accountable, whether publicly or just to yourself, in terms of, I really tried and I really failed, or I really tried and I really succeeded. And I'm not saying this from a perspective of being like uninformed and blind. Like, you do need to make decisions that make sense, but at the end of the day, you're the only person that knows how you want your life to go, what would make you happy inside. So don't believe in the tropes or the persuasions of other people when when you can feel that it's not connected to who you are. And I need to separate those, because there are some times where you're just thinking dumb, and that's a different aspect than who you are and what you're about and what you want to do. And a lot of this is just matriculated from the aspect of fear. And that is the biggest piece of this whole thing. And it really, I can kind of sum up the whole video with that Suzanne Jeffers book title, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways. But really, that's what it comes down to, is really just deciding what you're about, deciding that that's what you're going to focus on, not letting the distractions get you in the way, and then having the courage of your convictions, and then the courage to face the fear to get it done, not letting the fear of judgment, success. Yes, people are scared to be successful because now you're visible. Accountability, because when you take on a particular responsibility, there is more things people expect of you. Or the feel of failure, being embarrassed to yourself or to others and just losing that steam altogether. But really, the distractions, I think, really mess you up in this way. The second main point to this, the truth is inside you, and following yourself, is that you always get to choose your own lifestyle. Every single day, you choose your own lifestyle. Um, and if you don't like your lifestyle, there are certain things that, whether it's the predictability of it, the and that's probably really the predictability and the fact that it's known is what's keeping you there, because you're choosing to stay the same. You can make different choices to have a different outcome. Now, that outcome might be unknown and you don't know how you'll deal with it at that particular point, but you have the ability to make different decisions to have different outcomes. And this is really where, and this is more of something that I used to really think about more only applied to like my dating life, but now I've kind of expanded it to everything because it just makes the most sense. But it was the easiest way for me to understand, whether or not if you're talking to a particular girl, they're being a little evasive, they're being a little dismissive. Why? And I used to always try to kind of like pin it on them instead of me just thinking it's all my fault. There's something I did that started this thing off in the wrong way. So now I just need to choose the type of lifestyle I want to live and what I'm going to do from here. It doesn't really matter for me to talk about how I feel about how this particular thing happened and wonder why they're doing it. It only really matters. And shout out to Miles Cunningham. He always says it doesn't matter why, it matters that. So that happened, and there's something that I did to cause that to happen. And that's the only why that I'm worried about. Why did what I why did I do that thing that caused that? And then move from there. So any aspect of your life, if you're not getting the results you want, and this can obviously be anything financial, etc. Um, it's because of choices you're making, and you have the ability to make different choices to get a different outcome. Now, timing is a big piece of this. Obviously, things happen in time. You can't just, if you're in the complete wrong career, you can't just make a decision today and expect to be in the complete right career making top dollar, but you could start moving towards that trajectory immediately and adopting the personality and identity of somebody that moves in that direction immediately. And the last part that I want to talk about on the you choose your lifestyle piece is that there will have to be things that are removed when you go down this different path. And this is the part that, to be honest, for me is the hardest because the time management and of posting these videos and getting a great cadence of making these videos and doing this, even though it's something that often say is a priority, it becomes kind of deprioritized based on some other things. Some acceptable, some unacceptable, but there are some things I'm gonna have to remove. Like it's just not feasible with the things that I'm doing and things I'm investing my time in for me to get all of these things particularly done at one time. So that is really the choosing your lifestyle thing. Sorry, my computer was about to die. Um, is that things will have to be removed, but then actually the last part I want to add is like things will be gained because once you let those things go, because now you've gone in a different path, there's going to be things that are needed for that path that you're going to build, you're going to gather, that you're going to find that is on that different path. Now, the last part of this that I want to talk about is just the timing of things, and that timing, things happen in their time, but you can miss the boat. So this kind of connects to like if you're making a pivot, you can't expect everything to happen at one time. There is a delay when it comes to the results that you're going to get. But be in love with the process of moving towards that particular direction. However, if you don't take the opportunity when the opportunity is presented, it may not be presented again. And that's what I mean by you can miss the boat. So you need to take the opportunity that you're given, going back to the first one, really having that courage of your convictions, knowing that it's right, and then not succumbing to the fear and just moving forward and moving through in it when that particular opportunity appears. And then also living the YOLO lifestyle, but the real YOLO lifestyle. You only live once. Now, usually when you hear this, people do kind of like debaucherous type of things and a lot of hedonistic type of things when they say you only live once. But when you really think about YOLO, you only live once. If you don't do your early years right, specifically, up to your kind of mid to late 40s, you're gonna have a long end of your life, and it's probably not gonna be that fun, and it's probably gonna be a little bit miserable. Now, if Elon Musk has what he says, everybody's gonna have their retirement. So don't say for retirement, you're not gonna have to worry about that. But as we live today, that is not the case, and there's a lot of people I think are gonna be in a lot of bad shape in the coming years, especially too when you think about the birth rates and things like that. People are not even going to have people in their family to take care of them either in those coming years. So maybe AI can take care of it, but the real YOLO lifestyle, just to end the digression there, is just actually planning for the future and doing the things that you want to do in this life, not letting fear pass you by. And then all you do is think back to what could have been, what you should have did when you should have did it. You don't want that to be um, your issue. And when these opportunities and good things appear, like for example, for me, I had a really good um, a very good news, let me put it that way, from my current like main time gig, the one that's paying for the house, paying for all these things, because YouTube definitely ain't doing it because I don't really get any views. Um, it's it was a big push, a lot more probably expectation. I had a very good quarter in terms of I do sales, so I like very much hit above my goal in terms of where I need to be currently. And when you have those kind of good fortunes, you need to ride the wave of fortune. That's why I'm saying that, this is the time for me to double down on this, that things are going good with the job. This is the time to buckle up and buckle in, both here and with the job. That it's like I'm closing good deals. It's like I can make a lot of money this year, and then if I can get this thing going, then I'm going to be in a great position come 2027 to make decisions, because I'll be um, sitting on a little bit of bank. I'll be sitting on an actual operating media company, and then I will also um, still have my job if I still want to continue doing it, and I'll have the option to do that. And then also on the fighting aspect, I'll be at the profession, at least at the very least, ready to make my pro debut. So I'll have basically all of these different things ready to go to kind of all go together or jump off and just do two. So that's one big one. And then when negative things happen, I know if you watch my channel long enough, there was a period where I had a house and I was laid off and unemployed, and I don't know where my next dollar was coming. That's actually when I started fighting. I mean, it was coming through unemployment, but then it got shut off because you only get it for 6 months. And at that 6 month mark, luckily that week, I did find the job that I'm currently at, and I've obviously been busting my ass for the last couple years for me to get the good news that I'm saying in terms of the way they've kind of moved me up and helped me out with that. But during those times, the thing that I pride myself the most on was that I was unaffected by the storm. I wasn't, now emotionally, I did have certain emotions, but I really tried to just stay grounded, stay focused, that things are going to work out. You're putting out the applications, you're doing everything you can to do that. I was still trying to put out videos. Now, it's a little harder when you're like, how is this going to make me money? But I still did, there's still something to document. There was still some feedback. There was still some semblance of things that I can look at and say, I did on this front. I stayed in really good shape. It's actually when I started taking my first fights and things like that. So I didn't let that fear stop me. I didn't have any health insurance. So my first two fights, which is kind of wild when I think back to it, especially the second guy. The second guy had like 10 fights, and it was my second fight. But I digress. So that's really it for this one in terms of all those things. So I'm going to sum everything up. Then I give you guys a little bit of something you guys can hold me accountable for that I'm really going to focus on starting next week. But to sum this all up, follow yourself. Don't be confused by the masses. The truth is inside you. We live in a very chaotic and distracting world. Make sure you have ways to stay focused on yourself and your path, because you're the only person that knows the best for you. Nobody knows better than you. You always choose your lifestyle. If there's anything in your life that you currently don't like, that you don't jive with, understand that that is on you, that you chose your lifestyle, you choose how to behave. You could wake up and make completely different decisions tomorrow. So if there's something you don't like, make decisions towards the life you actually want. Timing is everything. Things happen in their time. However, you can miss the boat. What this means is that don't be affected if you don't see the results right away. Stay the course, keep executing, keep moving down the path. However, if you don't take certain opportunities that are presented to you in the time that they're presented to you, and you let them go, they may never come back again. That you're only going to be this age once. You're only going to have this energy once. And as I mentioned before, and one thing that I was talking to my boy about, one time when he's just talking about how it's like, well, my plan is just to keep hustling, hustling, don't matter. I'm gonna keep hustling. Like, but are you really gonna want to work that hard when you're 55, when you're 60? And even if you still want to work, do you still want the stress, that feeling of like something's hanging over the top of my head, and if I don't do it, I'm done? Because I had that feeling when going back to when I was saying when I was unemployed, like the way I was feeling going to sleep is not healthy. Like my heart didn't feel right. Like literally, like it was, and I'm not even saying it was like beeping out my chest, but it just the way it was beating was like I could feel the stress. And do you really want to have that in your elder years where your body's not the same, cannot take that the same as I could at 30 years old, 31, 32? So that's the recap for everything. So my go forward plan is for the next 3 weeks, not counting this week when this one comes up, the next week, because I'm going to be going to North Carolina. I'm going to do a combat sambo fight. I might have some content for that. Might not be able to post it because technically, like I'm not supposed to compete in it because I do have a fight on the second coming up in Atlantic City, and then I will also have a fight on May 16th at the American Dream Mall. If any of my subscribers or anybody that watches any of this, if you guys want to watch me fight, feel free to show up. I will, post the just leave a comment and I'll post a link. If literally anybody wants to come watch me fight completely separate, at least on this channel from what I normally do, feel free. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to do daily posts. I'm going to make sure that I come up with a topic, whether I'm reviewing something, get a little bit more into the dashboards here. Because as I put in my like 2 videos ago, even though I don't think anybody watched it, it's like when you do something every day, it makes it a lot easier. It's a lot easier for me to work out. Like I haven't worked out in 2 days, so I know I got to go do yoga today. It's like when you don't do stuff every day, it makes it a little bit harder. But I think that's a way that I can grow a little bit better. I'm also going to kind of rebrand to what my new channel is name is, because my media company is going to be Doc Mollywop Media. Um, Doc Mollywop MMA is already out and active. That's where I'm going to post a lot of my fight stuff. So if you're interested in fighting and want to look at that type of stuff, feel free to jump over and meet me there. But that's it for this one. I know it was longer, but really wasn't super concerned. And at this point, I'm really not concerned like with the algorithms and stuff. If somebody clicks on it, they listen, I think they'll rock with me. I think I make a lot of sense. I think I know what the hell I'm talking about. So if you've been rocking with me, I really appreciate it. If you want to send this to any one of your friends, feel free, as long as you're not in my regular personal life, because we still keeping this a little bit on the low. But if other than that, that's really it for this one. You like the content, like, didn't like, dislike, leave some comments below. Any feedback will do. And you know what it is. Until next time, peace.